So I love the music because it's so different.
Well, that's great. It's like a trade. This also, did you see on the other shop list, the company store? So they said that they companies that they were listing their tea and ginger.
All right.
This is Alexandra Leon with the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program. It's July 29th, 2022, and I'm sitting here with Johana in the Elaine Legacy Center in Elaine, Arkansas. Thank you for joining me today. I'm here interviewing with
Angelica McGee and Lauren King.
Johana. Would you please start by telling us about your place of birth and your childhood?
Well, my childhood was a rich one. I grew up in a wonderful family with a mother and a father and 5 sisters. They were a religious family and made sure we were brought up properly, as most parents would in those days. So it was a great childhood. It was a productive, creative childhood. I'll pass on my place of birth, but I am a U.S. citizen. But it was a time where we all were very close to nature and felt that closeness. My early years as a creative person was very early. My father could make things, and so could my mother. Different things, but he was an avid worker and deacon in the church. But apart from that, one of his great loves was fishing. And he made his own boats.
Wow.
And I can remember that as it was yesterday. I used to stand on the side and watch all the movement, all the things he went through to make a boat. And it was fascinating. And as I got a few years older, about 7 years old, I began to fish with him. And that's another art within itself. But my mother, at the same time, was a great cook. She was a great mother. She could make things. She was a great seamstress. And she could go to the store and see something and come home and make it. And while I had no interest in sewing, necessarily, I made a point. She would be there sewing, and I'd be right there by the sewing machine looking. So I watched everything they did creatively. And I got to, when I was in school, I was always trying to draw different things, and my cousins would show me stuff, and then one day when I was about 8 years old, the teacher gave us some paper and paint and said, well, why don't you paint something, create something, and so I did. And one of the 12 pieces were hung on the wall, was posted, and I guess that it also helped to inspire me. And by the time I was 10 years old, I knew I wanted to be an artist. And so everything just sort of continued from there throughout junior high, elementary school, junior high school, high school. In junior high school, we had a great art department, good instructor, and there were like a group of us that was involved in the process. And time came to graduate. I already knew what I wanted to do, and so I won a scholarship and to the Columbus College of Art and Design in Columbus, Ohio, and joined it there. And sat there for several years, and then I also worked as a corporate staff artist, and that was in Toledo, Ohio, and then I later journeyed to Cincinnati, to the Art Academy of Cincinnati, and then from that I also studied at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts, and then to the Art Academy of Cincinnati, and then to Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. Not Oxford, England, but that would have been great, but Oxford, Ohio. Okay. So my involvement, I got BFA from there. And so my involvement has been an ongoing thing. I traveled quite a bit, met quite a few people, and so on. I think as an artist, I've got a chance to go places and meet people that I normally would not have met. So my life, yes, has been a life that's been heavily based on creativity, or rooted in creativity.
Angelica McGee. So, as an artist, what is your perspective on the Elaine Monument?
The Elaine, you mean the Helena Monument in Elaine?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I remember when it was going up, and I thought it was very sterile. It's a monument, and that's about it. It doesn't speak to Elaine and the history of Elaine or what happened in Elaine at all. You know, but the most I think it says is that there was a massacre.
Right.
But after that, everything goes flat.
Yeah.
You know.
And so you lived most of your formative years in Elaine, right?
No, I'm not Arkansan.
Oh.
No, I'm not from Arkansas.
Oh wow. When did you start working with Elaine, like to be able to make the mural and different things like that?
Well, I have to backtrack a little bit. I've been working here in Elaine for about 5 years.
Okay.
Okay. But I lived in Helena from 2001 until 2008. And then I left Helena for Stanford, Connecticut. And I've been there ever since. Okay.
So, I wanted to know about your journey with art and your perspective of the civil rights movement. Like, how does that connect with your art?
Civil rights movement of the 60s you're talking about, or recent years?
Of the 60s in general, could be also related to the Elaine massacre.
Okay, well, I think the movement of the 60s are tied into pretty much everything that's happened before the 60s. It's all tied to Emmett Till. It's tied to the massacre here. It's tied to the one in Tulsa and the many others that has happened all over the country. I think all that's interrelated. I think the 60s era was an era where we got into a thing when we talked about, I think because of the movement and because of mass media, we got into things like black culture and black arts and the whole thing. So I think either it sort of mushroomed. Everything got much bigger than it was during the Harlem Renaissance or an era before that, you know. And so everything exploded. I think you had things happening from New York to California as a result of the 60s. From Northern America, part of the United States, to the southern portion. There were people creative that was dealing with visual images that I think was tied to the movement as it related to issues here in America. But I think you had writers, you had filmmakers, so everything became much bigger in the 60s and 70s as a result of that. And I think as an artist, as the artists of old, reflect what's going on, you know. Even, you know, people like Michelangelo, we talk about him You know, we used to think of Michelangelo in a religious way because of David and because of Moses and all that. But he was reflecting the politics of the times as well. He wasn't just creating a Moses. I mean, the Moses he created, he had the name. He was named Moses, yeah, but he was creating something even more expansive than a common Moses. You know, he even believed that he was part of the Reformation movement. That he was actually he worked undercover, but some scholars believe that he actually was not part of the. He was not a Catholic. He was not pro-Catholic. He did the job. He was hired to do it by the Pope, but they point to the fact that his Moses is not looking at the altar. The altar is here. His Moses turned here. And they think that he actually turned the head on the statue while he was working on it. So, but he was part of the movement, the revolution that was going on during that period of time. And I think most artists, like Guernica by Picasso, he was reacting to what's going on in Spain. Okay? So I think we all, at different points of time, reflect concerns of what's going on.
I was wondering, who were some of your earlier artistic and creative heroes or inspirations, and then even later in life?
That's a good one. How you narrow it down, you know, it's like a man having, how do you, having 5 sisters, how you break them? How do you narrow it down? There were certain artists I liked at different periods. I think as a child, I liked images that was more representational. You know, as a child, I guess I liked people like Rockwell or a Rembrandt or something of that sort. Andrew Wyatt. Then as I got older, in my late teens, early 20s, I began to appreciate a lot of others, like Renoir and Monet and Millet and all those guys. Donatello. I liked him, you know, but I think I liked him because I liked Michelangelo, and they were very similar. He would have been, he was almost like the first Michelangelo. If you look at his statues and the way they're formed, how he used how the wrist bends, that's very much reminiscent of how what Michelangelo does to the human form as well. Then time went on. There was Modigliani. There was so many that I liked. Dali, and there in the contemporary years, I guess in the past 40 years, I like people like I still like Wyatt. Of course, the controversy is that in many circles he's not considered a fine artist. You know that, don't you? You know that? No, Wyatt was opposed as being a fine artist. I mean, he's been successful, extremely successful. But I like Modigliani. I mean, in recent years, I've liked I liked Lichtenstein's and the Koonin, Gorky, the artists of the 60s area. I like Cole Scott, Roma Beard and Jacob Lawrence. It goes on and on and on. I like Picasso. There's a point in Picasso where we as artists always can follow another artist. Some with Picasso, and I got all kinds of books about with Picasso. Sometimes he loses you because his stuff doesn't conform to color relationships. It doesn't always conform to design, and so you say, well, where's he going with this? And I'm not sure he always knew where he was going either. But I like his work in general. I like Picasso. I like, of course. I like, of course, the cleverness of Andy Warhol, and I like, of course, Jean-Michel Basquiat. And there are many others. I mean, I could go. It's a long list, and I like artists for a lot of artists for a lot of different reasons. You know, and I think that's what you do as you grow and you look at what other people are doing, so as to understand what's out there, what's been done, and maybe discover a little something that hasn't been done. But I make it a point to just, I not only established artists, I like children's art. I'm a collector of children's art because children will step outside of the box, you know. And I think some people step outside the box, you know. Maybe that's why some artists use drugs, so they can step outside. I'm not saying they should be drug heads, but I'm saying I think it opens up so they can step outside of the box. And I think you can learn a lot from what children does, you know, in that same vein.
So speaking of children and in relation to the mural, I've been seeing a lot lately of community healing through art.
You said what now?
Of community healing through art. Like having students create projects and different things like that, or trauma healing through artistic endeavors. Could you speak to that at all?
Well, I can. You know, I was involved in two centers. One was in Toledo, Ohio. It was called the Soul and Art Creative Arts Workshop. And then I was involved in a center in art center in Cincinnati called the Arts Consortium. And what I found is that a lot of people were able to find themselves through the creative process. You know, their whole lives became anew once they got into the art as a means of self-expression. So it can be paramount in terms of the influences that a person may take. I think it's a great thing. I think one of the things missing right now in this country is that they got rid of all the art centers. You know, you look at the 60s, the early 70s, 80s, and 90s, there were art centers all over this country. And now you're hard pressed to find one. Now there's one in New York that's been there for years. And it was on the verge of closing down about 6 years ago. And one of the last ones, matter of fact, and you all heard of Herb Albert?
Herb Albert?
And the Tijuana Brass?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I never heard of Herb Albert and the Tijuana Brass. Herb Albert and the Tijuana Brass. She knows about Herb Albert, right?
Yes.
Okay. He's a famous musician. I was real big in the 60s and the early 70s. He and his wife, both musicians, for the past, I'd say 5 to 6 years, have donated about $4 million a year to keep this art center in New York going. Okay, otherwise we've been shut down. So I think maybe the fact that we see some of evil that's taking place today had to do with the fact that there are youth out there with energy and really don't have that something or that sense of direction by which they can direct their energy towards something positive. So yeah, I think the arts is very, very important, critical in terms. I think in terms of individual, and also help giving stability to the communities.
Do you think there's a reason why art centers have been closing in the last couple of decades?
I don't think I could say. I think the government individuals don't, because they're not involved in it at a certain level, don't see the importance, and so they just phase the money out. You got remember now that the art census came on the heels of the 60s and the civil rights movement. So as we moved into the early 70s, Washington gave money to the census for that, realizing that there were problems or concerns. And then it's, about 30 years later, they pulled it. The only sad thing about that is that and no one had the foresight, I guess, to deal with it. The ideal thing would have been to probably have, when the census was set up, there should have been a move toward owning the centers while that money was coming in to support them. There should have been a move toward actually buying the centers so they could stand on their own feet as we moved onward. And that didn't happen. So once the money was cut out, they closed up. And so you have a lot of, now we're talking about, let's say, we're talking about at least 30 some years at the most where the arts have been almost non-existent, unless you know an artist yourself, you can work with or talk to and all that. And apart from the arts is not just about talking; it's about sharing of ideas. I think creative people spend much time talking about creative things as they spend creating works, and without that center, that core, then they're sort of scattered all over the place, And there's culturally, it doesn't help the nation either to have all this creativity put at rest.
This is Alexandra. How do you think that the decreased funding in school programs for arts and creativity, the closing down of art centers, how do you think that that's going to affect future generations in terms of social movement?
Well, that's a good one. I know the arts are instrumental in helping to point the way, and they're also helpful as far as the enlightenment of people. The closing down of programs in the schools is almost like a two-way situation. Most of the time when programs are closed down in school, they affect maybe the poor and the poor middle class. I don't know why I don't say poor and middle class or not, but that's definitely the poor and poor middle class. I know that. They're the ones that's greatly affected. The ones that have the means, the arts aren't reduced there. Because they have the means to have private tutoring, to take their family to the big museums and all the other stuff that the poor and the poor middle class aren't necessarily privy to. And so that's where the greater suffering take place, or the greater neglect take place.
And what do you think our communities can do to fight back and make sure that these communities get access to the resources they need to be exposed to art and learn?
Well, that's a good one. I think it would take organization with a purpose. That's what it would take. Organization with a purpose by which to move on the problem. And I know one thing I know with the powers to be, they do recognize numbers, head counts, what have you.
I want to backtrack a little bit to when you were at school in Ohio. Were you in Oxford around the time when groups were traveling up for civil rights training?
No, no, no. You take me too far back.
Later than that? That's what I thought. That's why I just wanted to make sure.
Let's see. Oxford was a training ground
Right.
for a lot of people that was on the I think on riding the freedom
Freedom Riders.
freedom riders from coming out of some coming out of Nashville and coming down into Birmingham. Some I think came out of, I'm not sure, it was the Carolinas and came down and then came back into Birmingham. There was two different routes, I think it was. And Oxford was involved in training some of the, matter of fact, Goodman and Schroeder. I don't know about Cheney. Cheney may have been there 2 or 3. They got killed in Mississippi. They were trained at FAMU in Oxford. Mm-hmm.
When you were there, was there a legacy of that training on campus and in the?
Where at Oxford?
At Miami, in Oxford.
I would say, yeah. I did not. When I was there, I did a lot of commuting. I didn't live on campus, so I would say, yeah. I'm sure that there had been. I read too many. It's been mentioned a lot in history books about the training they took there, so it would have to be a matter of record, a matter of focus as to the role that they played in that movement. You know, but
How do you feel that the Elaine Memorial should have been, should have been executed, which is a terrible.
the Elaine, how I feel it should have been executed.
How should it have been done, commenced? Like, how should it have been done in a way that was respectful to not only the victims, but their descendants, so that it actually gave a good memory of them and didn't just basically say the name in the middle of a town that is not even the area where it happened?
Well, you're dealing with two things here. You're dealing with a horrific situation here where a lot of people were murdered. Yeah, I won't say hung. They were hung, but in this case, I'll say murdered. There were a lot of people killed here. And they didn't only kill men, black men. They hung women and children. I've got pictures where they were hanging on a tree side by side. Little child with a rope and the mother or an adult right here, all around the tree. There were a lot of them that was just massacred, just killed. They dumped them in mass graves here. Dumped them in the lake. All kinds of things happened here in Elaine. How do you memorialize that? You know, Helena says a massacre. That tells you something, but you know, I'm not sure. That's like saying a little bighorn. It's not enough just to say that, you know. And then the question gets to be, how do you portray that here? And it gets real tricky because I'm not saying you shouldn't portray it, but the people that was here during the massacre and many who was involved in it are still living here. They're still here. You know, and they don't want the tourists, on one hand, they don't want the story told. Okay? And some will say, well, no, nothing like that ever happened. You know, but it happened, and there's a lot of evidence to point to that. So they don't want the truth resurrected. And then you have people here that would like it because they know no one's told. It's been written about in books, but there's never been an image that actually deals with it. What actually went on here. So you find yourself dealing with an interesting question. How do you do it? How do you really focus on the massacre at the same time you've got other stuff going on? It's a tricky question. It's very, very hard and very tricky. You know, do you deal with this hard murder of just killing people out? Is that the image? Or is there something that's just as effective that, you know, that's what I've been working with on this wall, same kind of thing. There were a lot of, what I've done here and talking to people, there were a lot of black farmers here. There was, I think, 500 and some blacks that owned property, not working sharecropping. And they're almost non-existent now by comparison. A lot of the property you saw coming in here were owned by blacks, and they killed them out and took the land. They killed them out, then they took the land, then they create another layer of another map. But the next map has a different name. You're looking for information at one name, but there's another name been superimposed over that name. Mm-hmm. And so you got layers. You got to peel back layers like an onion to find what you're looking for. What I did here was like, this section here points to the field. Well, you see the field, but it's going to be bigger than that. The field, see that green band?
Yes.
It's going to go, all that's going to be massive land. I'm expanding it. And you see, they want to focus more on people, blacks as landowners than sharecroppers. So that's what was wanted. So that's the direction I'm taking this. And then the key persons of the Elaine massacre was the Elaine 12. You probably heard a lot about. These were 12 men that would, they killed a lot of others, but there were 12 men that were headed for electric chair. Okay. And so that's what you see right behind me are the 12. What I had to do with the 12 was that all I had was this posed figures of the 12 like this, very stiff. And I had opted to really change it around to have them communicate with each other. So I redesigned the 12. So, I mean, anytime you have them like this, it feels like a poster board, okay? And it just will not work if you just have them, you paint them just like they are on the picture. So I sought to give them more personality. And there. So what you're going to have is, this would be actually a farm, but then it's going to break. The space around these figures will be a different kind of space than what you see here. Okay? And then you move forward and you have the lady on this end with this little, it was a huge flag, but I made it small. It's going to say Elaine 12 right across here. And you've got, that's going to be a number of figures right in here. Now figures that's been drawn on that I've got to paint in place. The painting went through a lot of changes. I had drawings done of the figures. Right here, on this side here was a big portrait head of Ida B. Wells and Richard Wright. You probably could still see the circles right in here. There's one here, and there's one where the tree is. I discovered that I decided to paint the figures out. And then what emerged was a tree. Now, the tree was a revelation for me. The tree actually is a hanging tree. There's figures hanging from it. I'll show it to you. There was figures hanging from the tree all the way around. And what I did was, and what I eventually decided to do with the tree was to, anyone that sees a tree in this area knows a hanging tree. But what you're going to find with the tree, there are figures gathered around the tree. And there's going to be, I flipped it. There's going to be like ribbons hanging from the branches, okay? And from the ribbons, there would be books. Each book, there would be a ribbon, there would be a book attached to it. And what you're going to find are people and youth all around trees reaching up for a book. So you transform the tree of death to a tree of life or enlightenment. It's my point that, so I'm taking something that will glory, and I'm trying to use that to point the way, not for today, but in the years of time to come. So I flipped the tree that was, I mean, anybody seeing the tree said, oh, that's a hanging tree. So why are books hanging from it? So I'm flipping it. I don't think, I felt that was a good way to go about it, because then I'm not trying to appease the ones that's done what they've done. I'm trying to do is to take something that was very evil and negative and make it something very strong and powerful, and something that can be very big influence on the people in this community. So that's the idea behind the painting.
It's amazing.
You know.
It's amazing. I had another question, but I'll come back to that. I want to know what the plan is with this mural. Is it going to be housed here in the ELC, or is it going to be relocated? Or do you not know yet?
No, I know. There's a museum opening here. You haven't seen the building, right? You came right by it when you came in here.
We've driven past it.
It's been sandblasted. It's beautiful. They're putting, the outside's all been sandblasted. They're putting a roof on, a new roof on it. They're putting a new floor in it, plumbing, everything's being done. And this mural will be on the wall outside. Oh, wow. And it'll be designed in such a way. Most murals you see on plywood is bolted to the wall. You do this and run a bolt through it to hold it. This mural will not touch the wall. It will not touch the wall. It will be a support behind it, about 2 by 2. That will be bolted to the brick. And then the painting will be attached to the 2 by 2. So it means that this is about the amount of space that will exist between the wall and the painting. So when it rains, the water runs down the wall to the ground. And of course the face side of the painting will be sealed. There's a sealer you use. It protects it from sun rays and also protects it from the rain and snow. So when the face side is wet, the water just runs down to the ground. So, but the biggest thing is you won't have a problem of what I call rot when a wood is bolted to a wall. That water runs down and it's trapped. You know, it's some of this, the dampness is trapped between the wall and the painting, and it also causes the painting to rot. So this piece is going to be hung in a different way.
Because a memorial tree that was put up was chopped down originally, do you
Yes.
have any fear of vandalism from the memorial that you're doing? I'm sorry, the mural that you're doing?
You say it's a concern?
Yes.
Well, it's always a possibility that there could be vandalism, always. You know, if I had gone the other way with it and just portrayed it from a violent point of view, I have no doubt that somebody would have done something to it. But what I'm doing here, I'm still dealing with the same thing, except in a more uplifting way. I'm not necessarily tearing people down too. I want people to know what happened here, okay? But I'm not just trying to tear them down just to that. The point is, we know what happened here. So where we go from here? Where do we go? That's the question. I know books and education is perhaps the key, and that's what I'm trying to get here. Okay. But I think if it was just dealt with a lot of the truth of what happened, you would have some people coming by to do something to it. They would come by and throw acid on it, or maybe come by and put paint on it or something like that. But I'm hoping I'm doing it in such a way that people will look at it. Some will get upset at what they see, but not to a point of trying to destroy the museum or trying to destroy the painting. That's my thinking right now.
I think that's a wonderful approach. I think that's a wonderful approach.
Yeah. This is a unique city, I think. You know, well, I think this, Elaine's a very small area. And I think what you do here maybe affect people more than it would be in a larger city. You know what I mean? And so it was a matter of trying to take everything into account. Don't want to create another riot or massacre. I don't want to do anything to bring that about. But I do want to inspire people to be successful, to do great things. Yeah.
What do you want your legacy to be as an artist?
That's a good question. I figure I got this year alone, it was in 2 months, I lost 2 sisters.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And the oldest, the second oldest, and I'm the next. I'm the new patriarch of the family. I'm not the new one. I'm the only one. The other ones were, you know, so I'm the patriarch of the family, and I'm the only uncle, period, of the family. So I figure, getting back to your question, I figure perhaps I'll have another 15 to 20 years to go. So my plan is to I have a steel situation, but I need something large. I need a space at least half the size of what we see here. so I can work. I have a lot of work to do. Plan to do quite a few exhibits. Plan to develop my own website. I wish to market some of my stuff. And however it turns out, I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe I'll be the next great one, or one of the next great ones. I don't know. I don't think about that. Okay. But one thing I know for sure, and that's true for not just myself, but for, I think, I would say most everyone. What is important is not that you become well known or super famous or wealthy. That is important, like all the ones that come before. But what's important is that you stay on the path. That's what's important. I had a friend one time, and he's passed. I still have a friend. He was one that was always on the art scene, always, no matter what. And he wasn't an artist per se necessarily, but I had what the Jews call chutzpah. Is that the right word? Yeah. He had that. He couldn't. He had that. I mean, if somebody wanted something done, he would trace the image all kinds of stuff. But anytime there was something artistic happening, he was there in the mix. Okay. And so out of that, I was just thinking one day, and I realized no one can determine. I guess no artist should try to determine what's ahead or worry about it. I think as an artist, what you got to do, and that probably will be a writer, an actor, whatever, an actress, is that make sure that you're true to who you are. That's what's important. Make sure that you're on the path. As a matter of fact, I'm writing a book called that.
Really? Oh, wow.
Called The Path.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And I've known quite a few artists over the years. A lot of them good friends of mine, and some are gone. Some arrived at this level, some arrived here, and some here, and and they never totally made it to the top. But got minimal recognition. But that isn't always that critical. 'Cause I think the thing is to realize that you were true to yourself, and you did what you felt you needed to do as an individual, as a creative individual.
It's clear just from your mural and the way that you've spoken about it, that you have spent a lot of time thinking about and processing what has happened in Elaine, both in 1919, before 1919, and since 1919. And I think you have a very powerful vision about what to do moving forward. And I'm just curious to know, you mentioned you weren't from Arkansas, so I'm curious to know when you first learned about the Elaine massacre, as well as how you learned about it.
Well, I learned about it, as I said, I came to Helena in 2000, I'm not sure, what year did, yeah, it came, I think in 2001, I came here to Helena, and lived here until 2008. So I got a chance to learn about a lot of the history in this area. And I had worked at the Delta Cultural Center, and they dealt with the story and the histories of Phillip County as well. So, I just sort of stepped into that. And then I met people who were involved in the history here and making a difference, not just in Elaine, but other parts of Delta. So I just sort of evolved into that.
This is Alexandra. Earlier, you were talking about Picasso and the fact that he didn't conform to art standards at the time, as well as how children's art, thinking outside of the box, not sticking to one specific rule. How do you think that this mentality will help young people and older people in the fight for equality moving forward?
Oh, wow. The times that we live now are sort of different than they were during the 60s or the Picasso years or the Cooney years and whatever. The times now are different. The media now is much more diverse. I'm not sure that the young generation is as solid of a generation as we were. Maybe they are. I'm older, but we were very cohesive during that time. I don't know if the ones coming on now are equally as cohesive because there's so much going on, redirecting their attention and their lives. But I still think apart from that, they will. You have enough that's concerned about things political, issues that concerns humanity that will gel together and put pressure forward to make for the changes that need to be made. That's my hope that is what will happen. Even though we got things in place now that unlike 60s, 70s, and 80s, we have a lot of fragmentation in thinking and viewing and philosophy. There's a lot of fragmentation that exists now that didn't exist then. But like I said, I think people like to think that people will have will pull together, and I'm a believer in, and it's my rule, nobody else's, the 25% rule. There's a rule of mine that feels that the 25% are the ones that what we realize or not is having the great impact. And that's just me, but I think that there are people out there, regardless of age, who are mindful and are not swayed, and they know what needs to be done, and I expect they would be out there making a difference. I think the time we have now is, in the 60s you had leaders. You had different leaders that worked together, black ones and Caucasians and white ones and Hispanic, Indians, and on. They were leaders, and I'm not sure. I think they're here now, except they're not in the press as much as they were, years ago. But it's still those that we know or don't know. I think is going to make all the difference in the future.
So I wanted to backtrack to your childhood experiences, actually, like with your father and fishing and your mother's creativity. How did that impact your art journey, and how did you carry those experiences with you?
Well, as I said before, both were creative, and I was a very observant lad, and the things they did back then, I can still see them in my mind today. And I think they were the first that said to me, even for instructors or anyone else, they were the first that said to me that creativity is possible. Okay? Even when I didn't know how to draw or paint or anything else, they had already said creativity is possible. And that was the basis for, I think, everything that followed. I did meet people. I met people that showed me things and different techniques and all that type of stuff. But I was just building on what I saw through my parents. Okay, and when I was, I think, 9 years old and made the decision I wanted to be an artist, there really wasn't a doubt about it. You know, it just was. And even today, it's being an artist is not just being able to paint or sculpt or what have you. It's a way of life. So there's a whole mentality that goes into being an artist. And I think that's maybe the reason we as artists are who we are, because it never goes. It's like ministers. Now you got ministers that are just. Some ministers just have a job. Okay, I'll see you next Sunday at 10 o'clock. Okay. I'm not talking about that minister that does it as a vocation. But you have another minister that we use the word is called. They're going to be a minister whether there's 50 people around or 2. Okay? Because it's their genetics. It's how they're put together. And I think that's how it is with an artist. It's the same kind of thing. Or maybe even being a doctor or something, you know, it's the same kind of thing. Those doctors who really are doctors, you know, their heart and soul goes into it.
Question. Johana, before we finish, I want to know if you would be willing to sort of walk us through the mural again, and I can film it as you go so that we can get it recorded on video as you're explaining it.
Do you mind?
No problem. I can walk you through it whenever you would like.
I'm ready when you are.
Okay, now what? Do I need to get up or sit here?
Up to you. It's up to you.
The mural actually, everything in the painting always moves from left to right. So this figure right here, this figure comes out. And what you have is this figure here. You met him out. You've seen, he's here. This figure comes out, and what you're going to have children in here. And there's going to be a crowd of people going back this direction, like so, okay? And then the emphasis is going to be on the farmland. All this is the horizon now, but I'm going to move the horizon up to here. And this will allow me to show how vast, if you notice riding in, how you could just look out for miles on the landscape. Well, that's the same effect I'm going after. So this will be, the horizon will be here. I'm moving it up. Now, what I may do with this, this may be an horizon, okay? And then I'm creating a second horizon here. In other words, it's not really, there's going to be a break here. And then there'll be a second horizon here. and all this will be massive, will end up being massive farmland with a crowd of people coming in this way from this direction. About 2 kids here, 2 or 3 kids in here, and there's a female figure right here, and there will be a child or two in this part as well. But then it's going to break. It'll come to about this point and break, because what I want to do, I'm not sure I want to merge them. I want to allow the farm to breathe a little bit. So it's going to come here, and there'll be a break here. Now the strokes here will be designed to capture the effect of the farm. But then you move here with the lane 12. The strokes are going to change. They will become, the strokes and the coloration here will become different. So you know that as you move in among the 12, this space is a different kind of space than this space. Okay? And then you have the 12, and what I'm doing now is developing the personalities of the 12. And then you have this figure here, it's a female carrying it's like it's not a flag, it's not big enough for a flag, but it will just say Elaine 12 right here. And this will overlap the figures here. And then I'm going to drop, there'll be at least 2 figures. So one will be a little girl whose face you'll see about here. And then probably be another figure here. And then it moves across. All this is going to change. Her expression right now is not what I want it to be. All this is going to change, and then you have a break here. You break from this, there'll be a subtle break here with the figures here. And these are the figures. There's one figure you can't see is reaching up toward the book. And there's another one, small one here, that's actually looking at another figure right here. It's a female figure right here. And then there's another small figure here that's actually in front of this figure. And then you step down, then there's a larger figure. Here you just see the head. There's a larger head here because it's closer. So I'm creating a space situation here, similar to what you see in the 12. And then what emerges out of that is a figure right here. Here's his back, here's his head. Coming down, he has a big book. There's a book. He's sitting, reading a book right here. And there's a lady here that actually was here. I'm moving her over here. She'll be over here. Actually carrying a book, really. She is like this. And you see her back, the back of her head, and her arms up like this. But she's carrying a book. Here's the book right here. But this will be moved over here. And on top of the book will be it'll be a flame. There's a top, it's not on the book, but it's the top of the book. Face up a little bit. Here's the book here. The book will be actually about here with a flame on it. And then, of course, here's one figure reaching up. But here you have the tree with all these like ribbons hanging down with different a variety of books on them that they can partake of. And then the same thing will happen here. There will be figures here also reaching up toward the books that's hanging down. What I'm going to have to do is, the tree is tricky because it's big. It's big, so what you have to do, it becomes heavy. It can become very heavy if you don't do it right. So the tree probably won't be, it would not be real dark, because if it became real dark, the painting would do this. So I'm going to have to keep the tone of the tree maybe a light brown tone so it doesn't feel so weighty. Okay. And then there are actually 3 other panels. See that panel? That's not the one though. It's 3 that size that will go at the bottom of this. That will have most of the children in it because children are the future. So there'll be these 3 panels that hangs along the bottom. And the reason I had to go that route was that the painting was supposed to have been 12 by 24, but see, they don't make 12 foot. They don't make 10 by 24, but see, they don't make 10-foot plywood. So I had to come up with another route, and that was to make this 8 and then add 2 feet at the bottom. Okay? And that's where it is right now. You know, but it's been, I've done a lot of work over the years. This has been really a very challenging one in that there was so much to consider. It really is an awful lot to consider in doing this in this area. You know, and you want the museum to be successful, and it will. I think in terms of information that will be there and what people might want to get, and hopefully, and it should. One thing it should do it should get some of the crowd coming into Helena here. That's what you want to get, and once they can get people crossing the river into Helena coming here, then you can begin to build something, and something that could grow and grow and grow. Mm-hmm. That's the idea. It's been an interesting journey, it really has. I've done a number of murals over the years. This is probably the most testy, you know, because there's so much to consider with this one.
What would you say has been the most challenging part of this project?
The most challenging part was when I first got into it, I didn't realize it, but the most challenging part was to, after learning what happened here, was to figure out how to portray it in a way that it would have the greater impact. It wasn't a matter of simply just doing a painting of people being murdered or hung. It was about trying to see something, portray something that was about that, but had more far-reaching than that. So you can get bogged, you can get many times just caught up in things about what happened, and everything just sort of stays there. But what's important is that you do something in such a way that's uplifting, you know. And there are people living here. I was talking to a lady about 2 weeks ago about they grew up here, and the situation was so horrific. She told me, said, I don't know if anything happened to Elaine. I said, you talk to your mother? Yeah, I talked to mother. Talked to my grandmother. They would never tell me. You know, so you got people that don't want to think about what happened here. You know. But one thing I know is that it's important to educationally surmount what's happened here. You know, it's always about what went on, but it's also what is about where we're going from this point. You know, and that's what I do all the time. When I was painting a few days ago, I had three boys came in. They were about, one was 14, the other one was about 12, 14 years old, 12 or 14 years old. And I was painting right here, and they had a chair sitting right here. And I was just sharing some things with them that I thought was very vital. You know, like a big brother or daddy or something like that. Because they live here, they need to hear what I had to say. You know, and you never know in life who you're inspiring. You know, I know a guy named Clifford. He lives in Columbus, Ohio. I was there one year in 84, just when I left for Africa. And I was there at a show, and Clifford said, "Hello, Johana, how you doing?" I said, "Cliff, what you doing in Columbus?" He said, "Well, I live here now." He said, "After you left Toledo, I decided I wanted to be an artist. So I came to Columbus, enrolled at the Columbus College of Art and Design, and got my education." Wow. You know, and so you just never know. I said to him, I said, "Clifford, you know, when we were in Toledo, I never knew you were into art." I said, Ronnie King, who played a sax, and there was Melvin Vines, who played a trumpet. They would go up to Ann Arbor with me to the Ann Arbor Arts Festival. But I said, "I thought you were just going up to chase the girls, so to speak." He said, "No, see, I always was interested in art." You know, so you just never know. Mm-hmm. You know, who you're having an impact with. You know. And the same thing with this painting. Hopefully, this painting will be an inspiration to people that sees it, and will cause them to want to go ahead in life and move forward in life and do great things. Now you all, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You all are Proctor scholars?
We're with the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program.
Okay, I'm up Orange.
We're from the University of Florida.
Do you know who he is?
Who's that?
Samuel Proctor.
Is it Samuel L. Proctor?
Samuel L. Proctor? I'm not sure. Who's Samuel L. Proctor? And we can verify.
He's a great scholar.
Ours is also a scholar.
He was pastor emeritus at Abyssinia Baptist Church in New York. Oh, wow. Dark-skinned black man?
No, sir. No. Different Sam Proctor.
Is it a different Proctor?
You can tell us about this one, though.
Well, Dr. Samuel Proctor was Dr. King's teacher.
Oh, wow.
He also was the original founder of the Peace Corps.
Whoa.
You know, so this Proctor, I'm talking about, had at the seminary in Dayton had Proctor scholars.
Okay.
Okay. And he's also the same Proctor that married my wife and I.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
Dr. Proctor.
Okay. Well,
Samuel, no. I'm sorry, it's not Samuel L. Proctor. It's Samuel DeWitt.
Samuel DeWitt.
DeWitt Proctor is his name. Mm-hmm. Great man, very humble person.
Can you tell us about the story of how you met your wife?
No. Well, I was my wife was working on her master's, I think, when I met her. I was at the seminary up in Dayton, Ohio. And it was at the seminary where Dr. Proctor had Proctor scholars in doctoral program. Okay. So I went up there there was a big festival there, and I went there with a friend of mine, and was selling my work, and I think it was 2 days, but the second day she came by. Matter of fact, she came by. You all know Dr. Olson?
Mhm.
Well, she was there.
Oh wow.
Dr. Olson was there.
Is that when you first met Dr. Olson?
Well, let me back up. Dr. Olson was there, and my wife was working on her master's, and she came through the last day, and I did a portrait of her.
Oh my gosh.
And we talked and everything. That's my phone over there. But I did a portrait of her. No, that's me.
The audio.
Oh.
We'll just wait for it to finish.
Can you deal with it?
Okay.
Okay. So Dr. Olson was there. She was head of the, I'm not sure, the master's program or doctoral program, but she was there. And my wife was getting her master's at the time. And that was when I first met her. And I think during the time I was able to get her phone number, and I called her, and that's how it went on from there. And the following, that was in the, like, February. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
And that following February, I think it was, that following summer, I came by to take her out to lunch, and the seminary is egg-shaped and it has a huge lawn in the middle. And he was out that Saturday just walking along the lawn, and she knew him. She had met him before. And that's when I got a chance to meet Dr. Proctor. Very, very brilliant man, very modest. You would, just to meet him, you would know who he was. Very modest man, brilliant. And then I think it was that following spring, she called him about, want to set a date for a wedding. And he gave us 3 dates. And we looked at them and said, no, this is a little too early. They were like March, April, and May, something like this, too soon. So she called him back, and then he gave us 3 more dates. This was like in July, August, September, something like that. And so we looked at him, and we decided on the 28th of August as a wedding date. And a few days later, I was living in Cincinnati at the time. Like sometimes something keep nudging you, can't figure out what it is. So I'm in Cincinnati, and it dawned on me what it was. So I called her up, and I said, Rosanna? She said, what? I said, do you know what the 28th is? She said, no, what is the 28th? I say, that's the day my mother passed. So we got married 7 years. The date that my mother passed, she passed on the 28th of 87, of August 87, and we got married on 28th of August 94. Wow. So that I had problems with my mother passed. She was the first of the 2 parents that passed. And it was always a down time for me. And so it actually was rejuvenated through the marriage to something very positive. And we had a wedding at the church. It was Sunday morning. I think it was 11 o'clock. We had a Sunday morning church wedding. In other words, he incorporated the wedding into the sermon.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
And his text had to do with 2 characters of the Bible called Aquila and Priscilla. You ever heard of them? Y'all sound female, does No, one is a male, other one is female, but it was the nature of the sermon that they gave. There were several churches there with harps and all kinds of things. It was big to do wedding sermon that they did. Yeah. And so that was, one of the great things. And I guess as an artist too, one of the things I think is great, and you didn't ask the question, but is that I'd be able to go places and meet people that I normally wouldn't have met. I met, what's his name, Congressman John Lewis. Wow. He had purchased 2 pieces worked from me. And a number of other people I sold work too. I got a chance to go to Africa for 6 months. Wow. And if I hadn't been, I think, an artist, the chances are I would not have had the opportunity at all. So there have been a lot of things come my way because of the fact that I was creative. And I met certain people, a certain type of person. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk at all about your time in Africa?
My time in Africa was a wonderful time. I was there 6 months. I was in, first place I landed was in a town called Yaoundé. It's the capital of Cameroon. And it was like a base in Cameroon. And from that I went to Bamenda, which is English speaking. I was on the Nigerian Cameroonian border. I went to, the furthest north I went in Cameroon was a town called Maroua, M-A-R-O-U-A. And I tried to go to Mora, but it was so remote, there was nothing, I had to turn around and come back. And so in Cameroon, I was in Maroua, Gawa, Ngaoundéré, Bamenda, Boya, and then to the coast of a town called Limbe. It's very exotic. Flowers and bananas and coconuts just grow. It's right on the ocean. And I enjoyed it there a lot. I enjoyed it there quite a bit. Then I journeyed to Douala. Douala is a port of entry, like New York is. But it was a great time there, and I met some wonderful people there, got into the cultural traditions there. I think I also spent a week in Sierra Leone. Spent, I think, 2 weeks in, no, I spent a week in Sierra Leone. I think it's been 2 weeks in Abidjan, Ivory Coast. And then I spent 2 weeks in Senegal. And I spent a lot of time going over to Gorée Island. It's an island off the coast where the slaves were enslaved were held. And then from there, spent about 3 days in Paris, 1 day in London, and back. But it was great. It's always great to see how other people live in the world. They deal with the same, but they have many times different ways of dealing with it, And I went up until this joke. It's not a joke. It really happened. I was in a town like Dillard's or a department store in Paris, and I went. I had dinner. It was like a lamb stew with a bottle of wine for 50 cents, red wine. So later on, I got up and left the dining area, which was on the second floor of the store, to go to the restroom. So the guy said, just go down there and turn to the left and follow the. So I went on down part of the pathway, and there were 2 doors here. there was a lady sitting at the table. They charged 10 francs. So I gave her 10 francs. Or was it 10 or 2? I forgot now. But anyway, probably was 2 francs. I gave her 2 francs, and I went in, opened the door, went inside. So I'm in the restroom. I'm standing there. I hear somebody flush the commode. So I looked over my shoulder. Here come this lady. Here come this lady out of the restroom. So in my mind, said, well, did you go in the right room door? I said, and in my mind said, of course, you had to pay to come in here. So then I understood it was unisex, you know. But she didn't pay me any attention at all. She came in and fixed her hair and went on outside. But you learn to appreciate different ways people just carry on, you know. And I got to eat something, well, I guess you would call different. I did get to eat what they call horse. Now, there's probably a French word for that, I don't know, but it was horse. I ordered a steak, you know, downtown Paris. I wanted steak and fries. And the guy came, he took my order, went back, came back, and he brought me this steak about so thick, about that big, and some good home fries, and I think I had some A1 sauce to go with it, and a bottle of beer. And I knew what it was as soon as I saw it. The way you know horse from cow is that it has more grain. A horse is much more muscular than a cow is. And you can see the grain in the meat, you know. It tastes the same, though, pretty much. It tastes the same as beef, red, the whole thing, you know. But, you know, it was cool. The country, different countries I went to in Africa was very beautiful countries. I found the people to be very friendly, very receptive. I lived in a number of African homes when I was there. It wasn't in the plan. It wasn't already necessarily planned. It just things just happened a certain way. And but it was once it was a lifetime experience. I tell you, I went there expecting with expectations. And what I found there was that and even more beside that, you know. And what you see is just a lot of, you got a lot of different tribes. Who are very similar, I think, in its culture and everything, you know. And as long as you are respective of them, you'll find that they likewise reciprocate. I was in one club one night, and see, that people do a lot of conversing, as we are. They sit around and have some palm wine or some beer or whatever, and water, whatever. They're very sharing. And we would gather, and it was one night we were at went to a cafe. It was about 6 of us. And we had a little room where we were sitting there drinking beer, and the taxi driver that I knew nothing, not of at all. He walked into the room and he said, "Please excuse me." He says, "I had heard that you were here, and I just want to wish you a wonderful stay in Bamenda." Wow. You know, so they have a way of, if you're there, they have a way of knowing that you're there, and if you're a certain way, if you're a good person, then you find good things come through. But if you're a person that that's not favorable, likewise, they'll deal with you, but you don't get invitations. You don't get have things open up for you if the word is that you're not cool. So I appreciate all that.
And what phase of your life was this? What phase of your life were you doing all this traveling?
When was I doing this travel?
Yeah, how old were you?
I was doing this in the 80s.
Oh man, it changes the background in my head a lot.
The what?
It changes the way I was picturing the story a lot. That it was the 80s,
It's 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 80s. I just, I had the opportunity to go and got some money together and went. And then, things opened. I was arrived in Senegal. That was the last place in Africa that I stopped coming up the coast. And the National Conference of Artists were having an annual meeting in Senegal. And I got there a week early. I didn't know the exact date, so I got there a week early. And there was a lady named Valerie was getting her doctorate degree. She was getting ready to fly out of Senegal. And she had loaned her place out to a guy and I forgot his name, and his wife. And she said, I'll tell you what, she said, let's go down and see, I think Al. And went down and talked to Al, and he was coming back with Valerie. And I talked with him, and he said, well, so I really don't know it, but based on Valerie's suggestion, say you can stay at my place. I met him at 12:30, around 12:30 that day. That evening, around 6:30, they left to fly back to the United States. I stayed at his place for I think, a week. Wow. Things just happened like that, He wouldn't have done it here. Different culture, I totally different culture. I remember one time I was in Bamenda, which is English speaking. It was an independent country at one point, but it's part of Cameroon now. And when we got ready to go to a town called Boya, heading toward the coast, and Boya is spelled, by the way, B-U-E-A. Can you get Boya out of that?
Not unless you told me.
So we went there. The mode of travel, you don't have a taxi, you don't have Greyhound, so you go out to a big field, and all these vans and cars would show up at a certain time. That was a time, flying and all that. So it was 1, 2, 4 of us going to Boya. But they have to calculate. They have to keep a record, a tablet that show who's riding with what car or van. Okay. And the one guy came up, and they always will tell you, said, don't ever give your passport. So what we had to go by was the guy that one of the guys in the group knew the guy in this huge crowd. I mean, it's a crowd of people, sea of people out here, not a sea, but a huge crowd, like on a football field, waiting to get a ride. So Gamu gave his cousin the passports, all the passports. This cousin, he went this way and went that way, and you didn't see the cousin anymore. But the whole thing, the tribal thing, is such that people don't mess up. After about 10 minutes or so, he showed up with the passports, and we went on our way toward Boya. The systems up there are very, very sophisticated. I think the only time you see things going haywire is when you have wars. Things have to get real crazy. But otherwise, they have a very strong, a very complete system of order in doing things there. You know, I went to see, and I'll say this real fast, but I had one time chance to go to a village to witness, to visit the farm. The farm was a 12-year-old boy. And when we got there, Gumu and, was a member of the tribe. So when we got there, they had rented a taxi all day because it was Independence Day celebration. When we got to the village, way out in the interior, miles away, and when we got there, you could not go see the farm on your own, even if you were from the tribe. You couldn't go see him. The elders had to take you to see the farm. And he wasn't there at that time, so we missed him. But there was one other incident where when I was staying in Bemenda, I was going to be there for about 5 weeks, and I wanted to see if I could went to this hotel to see if I could get a cut rate on the rental, on the room. So this gentleman was at the desk. He got up and said, "Well, we wait for a moment." He went down the hallway, made a turn, disappeared. About 10 minutes later, he came back out. He had this little boy about 10. He was about 10 years old, I guess. And the little boy was the one who was calling the shots. I mean, they're real a certain way. So they don't go off the deep end, but he had to talk to the little boy before he could tell us anything, because that was the way the system was set up, you know.
Sounds like an exciting 6 months.
It was.
It really does.
Yeah, you see yourself, and I think that was the point of it all. I was able to see myself in another dimension, you know. And it was the experience or the dream of a lifetime. It really was.
Before we finish, I just want to end by asking one more question about the mural and your work with Elaine and in Elaine. What has been your favorite part of the project?
My favorite part.
Favorite part of this project behind you?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, having the opportunity to do it was, I'm very happy for and elated for. What my favorite part is, I guess I have to appreciate the evolution that it's gone through. You know, it was like I hate to use this terminology too. It was like 4 or 5 different pregnancies. You know, I have drawings over there that I did, and I redrew, and everything. And I said, well, this is where we're going. And then you get started on it, and then you realize you like it, but you don't like it. So now you got to begin to change some things around here, and you go on, and it was constant give and take, or adding and subtraction in the process in order to get it to where it is today. You know, and it was very challenging, and I appreciate that too as well. That the challenge, taking in mind that I've done a lot of paintings over the years, but this would have had to have been the most challenging work that I'd ever done, and I may because there were a lot of things to have to consider about the area about Elaine and all that. And the question was, what would be the most effective way by which to deal with it, and at the same time be positive, or be the most positive about it, with it. You know, so I appreciate the challenge. You know.
You've done an amazing job.
Well, thank you. Thank you very
Really
much.
have. Does anybody have any more questions? Okay.
I think you were the perfect artist for the project.
Yeah,
Oh.
definitely.
Well,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah.
Had good questions to me as well.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate
Oh,
it.
you're welcome.
I'm gonna.
That's lovely. We're playing a tune.